Happy Easter, life groups. You're probably hearing this, maybe getting together after Easter weekend, but I hope you had a really meaningful Easter and were able to celebrate with loved ones, friends, or family, or also participate in our Easter celebrations between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. And I hope you're having a meaningful time together gathering this week. As we celebrated Easter at Southridge, and I shared just a message of the good news of Easter and a hope and encouragement for us, I shared a little bit with an illustration from this Easter bread known as Pascha. Maybe some of you are familiar with it. Maybe some of you ate some of that over the weekend, or maybe you're enjoying some other treats together tonight. But I shared about that because Pascha has a bit of a root origin in its word of this Greek word pos, that I wanted to teach us to help us understand the hope of the good news of Easter. This small word pos in English translates to the word all. And I shared about how the New Testament teaches that what God has done through Jesus, through his death and resurrection, is that he is reconciling all things to himself, fixing and repairing all things in the universe, including overcoming the thing of death. And I invite you to process that together. How can we have hope, even in light of the certainty of death in our earthly experience? And then maybe even more applicably, where can you find hope and put your trust in Jesus reconciling the all things, maybe little deaths that we experience in our lives? And all of this is anchored in the main passage that I reflected on Easter Sunday from Colossians chapter 1, which you guys could read together as well, but I'll read it for us. What I called the Pascha passage for this Easter, where the Apostle Paul writes this in Colossians 1, 19-20. He says, "For God was pleased to have all, or pos, his fullness dwell in Jesus. And through Jesus to reconcile to himself all, pos, there's that word again, things, all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross." Friends, this is the big idea of Easter. That what God has done in the person of Jesus, as God lived in Jesus, when Jesus gave up his life to death on the cross, he overcame death. And I shared about how one of the things that Jesus is reconciling is the thing of death itself. And then through his resurrection is in the process of reconciling all things in our existence, all things in our world. And so where do you need to find that hope this Easter? I invite you to talk about that together, to work from our conversation starters, to reflect on some of the other questions that are there, and maybe share with one another. What is something you might be going through these days in this season, or that almost feels like a death in your life where you need to lean into the hope of Jesus's reconciliation of all things? I hope you have a really great conversation and hope you continue to have a meaningful Easter season now on the other side of celebrating the resurrection. Take care, everyone.